Welcome to Twin City Talk. Today we are talking to Amy Jah. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
She owns American Moving and Hauling, and she started the Sugar Mamas movement, which is taking off.
Yes, it is.
What inspired you to start that?
It's kind of funny because, and Tim's heard this story before.
That's okay.
Put it on repeat here. I actually didn't have like a business plan that I was going to start this Sugar Mamas movement. I thought that I wanted to create a shopping event that was for local women-owned businesses and for women in the community. And as I started doing that, I started kind of digging a little bit deeper and like journaling and kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. And I realized that it was more than just this once-a-year event, that I wanted to really create a community of women that would support and encourage each other. And it's really for women in the entrepreneurial space or women that want to start kind of dipping their toes in that entrepreneurial space. So it just sort of happened. It's funny how you can kind of have something in your heart, because I think for a couple of years before that, I was always, just doing things naturally, like trying to connect women and, hey, you should meet this person. Oh, I think you need to, do this or whatever. And it just sort of organically happened. But I think it was taking that first step to do it. It's like you don't see the next step until you take the first one. And then, so it was just kind of, it's been a fun, wild 18 months.
I was going to say, so it's been 18 months?
Yeah, so I started trying to organize the first shopping event in August of 2023. And then we launched our membership in March of 2024. So we launched it right around the same time that we did the shopping event last year, which was March 9th. Yeah.
What does the membership include?
So we have monthly meetings that are in person, and we have virtual meetings. And we started back in March, and we were doing just in person. But we added the virtual option so that, everybody's schedule is crazy, especially with women. You've got 50 million things to do. But the big major component is our in-person meetings, because I feel like in our society today, we're so like isolated from each other. Like everything can be done virtually. You don't have to even go to like a building to get a college degree anymore. You can get your groceries delivered, you get your dinner delivered, like everything. And so I feel like we're losing community in place of like convenience. So I feel like that's such an important part, because you cannot get someone's energy from a Zoom call, like you have to be in a room full of people and kind of like get those vibes, as the kids would say. So, a long way to answer your question is we do monthly in-person, monthly virtual. We also include branding photography in that. Most of our events are all free, unless it's like a big event, then it's a ticketed event just to cover costs. So we do a lot of fun things that are members only. Like this past October, we did a Bridgerton-themed event, which was so much fun. It was ridiculous. We were wearing wigs and these insane dresses. But we do, our presenters are all like experts in certain areas. So we try to be really well-rounded, and we always do networking as well during the events. And then we also do shout-outs for our members, newsletter, social media shout-outs. We offer discounted coaching and all that kind of stuff. So it's a really robust membership, I think, in terms of, and there's not a lot, there's a few, but there's not a lot of women-only based networking memberships in the Triad. Yeah. And if they are, I feel like they're very corporate. And we're very just like down to earth, genuine, come as you are, that sort of thing.
Well, even your social media, I just love how inspiring and uplifting for women it is.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a lot of fun. We try to add a lot of value into what we're putting out. And it's just sort of like, I've been in those spaces where you feel really uncertain of yourself. You feel uncertain of your business decisions, just yourself, because maybe you are so isolated. And so I wanted to just kind of create a space for women where they could be vulnerable and share like things they're going through and like, encouragement with each other and tips, you know, like, oh, this is what you need to do. And like it could solve like 2 years of your problems, but you just got that education right off the bat from one person because they had experienced or went through that. So,
Yeah, we talk a lot on here about Winston and connections and how great it is for that. But the fact that you're rallying up all these women and helping aid that is amazing.
yeah, thank you. It's been fun.
And just a social connection too. I mean, what you were talking about, you said everything gets more convenient, and we're starting to sacrifice our connections over convenience. And I don't think that we realize it because we start slowly but surely replacing even things we had to do that were necessity that we didn't love to do, like maybe going and picking up something as opposed to using Amazon. And we think to ourselves, oh, it's so great that I can sit on the couch and like get it from Amazon. And I'm super guilty of that. But when you would leave your house and interact with other people, even if it's just cursory, passing people, there's something to be said for that. And so, you know, what you're doing clearly is elevating that way beyond. That's super cool. Yeah.
I feel like women are really searching for that and really hungry for that.
I'll go so far as to say, I think people.
People, yeah,
In general.
exactly. There's been studies that say that women that have close friendship relationships actually live like on average 5 to 10 years longer and don't suffer as much from depression and suicidal thoughts. Because you can just be around another woman and they can just be like, girl, get out of your head. You know, like it can be something so simple, but having that interaction where somebody can talk you out of this negative thought pattern that you're having is huge.
And just realizing you have value in those moments where you start to think that you don't for whatever reason. And somebody calls you up and like, hey, you want to go get coffee? And you hang out and you do that. And then you go for a walk in the park and you think, I'm over here wondering if anybody's ever even thinking about me or what's going on in my life or whatever it might happen to be for anybody as you said, it's kind of wrapped up in whatever's going on with them. And it's that reminder that you know, not only they have value, but there's something sitting right there a moment away. So
For
love
sure.
that.
Yeah, it's definitely needed. And, you know, like you said, we're losing that human connection. And when we started doing stuff with Sugar Mamas, we started out like very social based. Like our first event was the pink party. There was nothing about business to do with that. There was like no educational aspect or anything. But like the tickets for that sold out in about 8 hours. Like I had 100 women come to this party. And one person told me like months later, they were like, I just really love that event because I didn't feel any pressure to do or perform or be a certain way. Like I could just come and be around women that I felt like understood me. And I was like, wow, that was really telling to me because I think once I kind of started doing more in-depth programming and stuff for Sugar Mamas, I was making it probably a little bit too education heavy. And I realized like, we just really need this connection time, like just, just to party, really.
Have some fun.
You need it, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you from Winston or where are you from?
I'm from Lexington. Yeah. And I tell people, I'm like, it's not very far away, but it's a world of difference. So, yeah. I've actually lived here as long as I lived in longer now. So I've been here longer, so I consider myself a Winston native because even though I didn't go very far, I got out of there.
What do you love about Winston?
I love that it is like you can really, everywhere you go, like I feel like you find somebody you know. Even though it feels like a big city, it's really not that, like, I don't think, I heard y'all talking before I got here. But it's true, though. It's not, like, to me, Winston does not feel like a big city at all. Like, I feel like I see people all the time. And what I love about it is that you have pretty much everything you need here, right? But you can still feel like you're part of a small community.
Yeah.
That's what I think,
Same.
you know? Yeah.
It's
like once you've been here for a while, you kind of figure out, like, the ins and outs of everything. And once you start going in certain circles, you're like, oh, yeah, I know this person knows this person. And so it feels almost Hallmark movie-ish.
It does, a little bit, yeah.
A little bit. Me and a friend were downtown on 4th Street like the other day, and we were walking to this pub to look at like the interior of it for something, and somebody just ran out of like a storefront shop, and they were like, hey, hey, Amy, Jody, oh my. And I was like, this is like a Hallmark movie. This is weird. But it was cute.
One of the few Hallmark movies that I did do, we shot in Winston.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Are you
Yeah.
serious?
Yeah, I actually had to get up in my own bed. I'm like, this is crazy that I'm shooting here. I mean, I didn't cast it here, but they're like, yeah, he's shooting in Winston-Salem,
That's
North Carolina. I was
crazy.
like, oh, come on, that's
Oh
amazing.
my gosh.
So, yeah.
Which movie was that?
It was called The Shunning. Yeah, it was sort of just in the countryside of it, Bethania, Bethabara, all of that. We used a lot of those parts of it, which again, right there, that's another thing that most people would never know about it is these incredible, smaller communities, founded by the Moravians that, are hundreds of years old. I mean, that's such a cool little pocket of Winston as well in its history. So, but yeah, it is a very Hallmark movie, isn't it?
It is. There's a lot of cute little areas here. You're like, oh, that's so quaint and picturesque. So yeah, I can see them filming over there. That's neat. Yeah.
I've often wanted to use the downtown here for filming. There's parts of downtown that have a really cool, gritty vibe that feel like they could be anywhere.
Yeah.
And so you've got great countryside and it could feel super urban downtown all within, minutes of each other. And so I've often felt it would be a fantastic place to shoot a series or a feature.
It would. I never thought about
Maybe
that.
I'll
but
put one
there's-
together. I don't know.
Yeah. Juxtaposition, the two different. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's seconds from each other. Most of the time when I'm filming, if it's in a big city, and it usually is, it takes hours to get, transpo and the logistics of everything set up there and move to the new location. It can be moving mountains to do that. And logistics is a huge part of filming, so you want to keep it as tight as possible. So it's kind of great when it's here, there, and you just quick bounce around. So yeah.
I could imagine moving a lot of people and things.
It's
Even
moving
just a short
they call it a
distance.
company move.
Yeah.
Like company move, that's the term in the industry. If you move from one location to another, tomorrow we have a company move. And it is exactly the word they should be using because you feel like you are moving an entire company from one location to another. There's what's called base camp, which is headquarters from wherever you're working from, right? So base camp becomes your place of operations and you're literally setting up everything and they all are there. And sometimes they're there for 2 days and sometimes they're there for 2 weeks and you move to another one. So imagine how much work and effort that goes into starting up a company, getting it, moving, not necessarily the finalized pieces of it because this is more of a makeshift version of it, but the time that it takes to do that in, a company you're starting, well, you do that like 4, 5, 6, 7 times making a movie, especially a big budgeted one, some 50, 60, $70 million movie. You're moving mountains every few days. It's crazy the amount of effort that goes into it. So yeah. Sorry that I took us off on that
you're
journey,
fine.
but
It's probably a huge budget for that.
well,
to
for
do
the
all that,
for the big budget ones, it really is it's unbelievable, But then they're also plowing through $60 to $100 million. So
Got to spend that money somehow.
well, yeah, exactly.
You have experience in moving, so your other company is a moving company. So what made you start that?
The same way that I started Sugar Mamas, not knowing what the hell I was doing. I didn't have a plan for that either. I worked at a storage company, and I just sort of started doing it like on the side. Like I was like, I know some guys. Like I was young. I think I was like 22 when I started the company, and it just kind of grew. Like I ended up getting licensed and insurance and all the grown-up things, and bought the trucks and all that kind of stuff, and just threw myself into it. And this year will be our 20th year in business. So we started in 2005. So yeah, I don't recommend getting into that line of work for anyone. I'll just be, because it's hard work. It is really hard work. And even if you're not, moving the people physically, you are dealing with people at the highest stress point of their life. They are stressed out. And so you have to always, be calm and accommodating and all that kind of stuff. But I feel blessed that we've been able to do it for this long and that we have really helped so many people, not just people that we've moved, but people that we've employed and stuff like that, because, it's a really physically demanding job, and we get a lot of people that other people wouldn't hire, and they get a chance, and they really excel in that kind of work, and they are really thankful to be, making good money for a company, so I feel like it's been a blessing to do it, even though it's been hard, but yeah.
I don't know the statistics, but I'm guessing there's not a lot of female-owned moving companies. Is that
No,
accurate?
there's not. I'm in a small group like on Facebook that are women moving company owners, and I mean it's like nationwide, and I think there's like 15 people in the group. So it's very small group, and it's a very like masculine industry where the men that own the companies and the men that even the movers and stuff, if you go on these, group boards and all this stuff, they're assholes. Like they just know everything and you can't tell them anything. And it's just like a lot of ego. And it's just like, if you're a woman-owned company doing something in a male-dominated field, I've said this before, but you have to be better at it than the men are because you're not going to be taken seriously. And it's not fair, but that's just the way that it is. But yeah, it's a small group. I can't blame.
So Amy didn't personally do it, but American Moving moved my parents.
Oh yeah, they had a big move.
Yeah.
They've been in the house for a long time.
Yeah, for 36 years.
Yeah.
And that's the house that I basically grew up in. And it was around 5,000 square feet
That
house.
was huge, yeah.
And then moved to one that's equally as big, but just long.
Uh-huh.
It's not stories,
stairs, yeah.
but it's long.
Yeah.
But they had, at the time, all three of their grandsons were living with them. And
Oh gosh. Yeah, I remember that.
so it had all that stuff, and they wanted to move into a house that she could still, they had the grandkids wing of the house.
Oh, man.
And now only one of them lives there.
Well, they've got plenty of room to spread out still.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was a good move. I remember that. It was a couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
That was a good move. That was a good
That's
move.
a good
I'd
move.
love to hear some of these shows. I think wistfully, like a
Oh my
scotch in
God.
your hand.
I've told my husband so many times, we need to get somebody to pitch us for a reality TV show
I
because
can only imagine.
That would be
holy
interesting.
crap. I'm not even going to disclose the stories here, but you run into some crazy stuff because you're going into people's houses and sometimes you're like, oh,
like
how are you
hoarders?
living like this? Yeah, it's wild.
And I can only imagine certain people who maybe didn't want to move and the other parties needed them for them to move, that kind of stuff.
Oh,
And then you
yeah.
run into that. And then, way you move, a treasured piece and how they might handle that. I can imagine just the personalities, like you said, they're
Oh,
an
yeah.
apex moment in their life. They're super stressed out. This might be crazy sentimental, or maybe they didn't want to move, or maybe it's, getting to a certain age. The personalities are at this full tilt space, I would think, for you every time you move somebody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's for sure.
We need to have another podcast with you. Just laying. All right, we're going to sit here
I'll write
and
all
listen.
my stories out.
You can make a book.
I'm like, I must have PTSD. Sometimes my husband will say, you remember such and such, blah, blah, blah. And I'll be like, no, I don't. He was like, you don't remember that? I was like, I think I have PTSD. Like, I blocked it out because some of the stories are so crazy. But I'm sitting here thinking, like, I told him, I'm like, if they can make a reality show out of people cutting trees in the forest, like, they'll be blown away with the drama that we got. And he
All
was
right,
like,
give us a crazy one. Give us a crazy one.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell us details, but what's something that pops in mind?
I'm going to, for an appropriate one, I'm drawing a blank.
It can be inappropriate with details, kind of massaged.
This is not. This was a crazy scenario. This family had a cat, and the cat went missing. Right, and they called that night, and they were like, hey, have anybody seen our cat? We think she might have gotten out. Because we tell everybody to put their animals up, like crate them or put them in a different room or whatever. This cat crawled in the box springs, and we had stretch strapped the box spring, had no idea that the cat was in there, and they were moving to Vermont, and they were keeping the stuff on the truck for like a night, and then it was like 2 days worth of travel. So like 3 days later, right? We're like, no, we checked the trucks to see when they called that night, didn't hear anything, didn't see anything. got up there. They're unwrapping the box spring, and the cat, like this cat had been in there for 3 days, like probably like used up 3 of his lives.
Whoa.
But yeah, so that's mild. That's mild. We do divorces, separations. We do all kinds of stuff. We have unique and interesting items fall out of nightstands and under beds.
Is that necessary?
I mean, there's all kinds of things that we've done moves where there's been bodily fluids involved.
I'm kind of sorry.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go into all that, but yeah, there's always something fun going on.
I have no doubt.
Yeah.
I like how you labeled it fun too, because I'm imagining it's not always fun.
Yeah.
I like that you said, I wouldn't envy anybody going in this business. I wouldn't recommend anybody. It's so much hard work. Been doing 20 years, and you have another business. So you started up a second business.
Yeah.
I love this. I love this so much.
It's so funny because after you deal with so many people, because it's not just, the people that you serve, it's also the people that you manage. And anybody that manages people knows that is the hardest job that you can do. And so I would tell my husband, like years before I even started doing Sugar Moms, I'm like, I'm just going to do a job where I don't have to deal with anybody anymore, like no people. And I deal with the most people. I'm like, God's like, oh, boop, here you go. So I'm like, okay, well, can't be an IT person, I guess.
Well, you clearly have the personality for it, though. So, I mean,
guess.
you're obviously great with people. So,
Yeah, I do like people.
Living
I do
in
like
your
people.
sweet spot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
You need to write a book, though. I want the moving horror stories book.
Memoirs of a Mad
Or
Mover.
a podcast.
Perfect. There it is.
Or I know Tim's been on me like, gotta do that podcast.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you've got several coming.
I do.
Yeah.
I've got to get that planned out. And I told my husband, I'm like, you're getting on here. And he's like, we're going to all get canceled because he's like the most inappropriate.
It's
I'm
your
like,
podcast.
no.
You do you.
I'm like, no, this is just real. This is just us, And I'm like, there's always Tim can always edit.
I will always take care of you.
I know. Yeah, he's crazy. But funny, very entertaining. That's
Yeah.
why I'm like, you've got to get on here because he's just very witty banter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can people find out about your businesses?
They can go to my websites. They're both pink, which is great. I have like similar branding, interchangeable.
Because you're Amy effing Jah.
Amy F. and John, that's right. I'm sorry. American Moving is AmericanMovingandHauling.com. And then Sugar Mamas is SugarMamasMovement.com. Don't just put Sugar Mamas. You're going to get a lot more than you bargained for.
Yeah, that buzzing earlier would be nothing.
Yeah.
You have any idea how many people are now looking up just Sugar Mamas?
They're
Yeah.
like, let me see what I can find. Yeah. We get some interesting Instagram messages from people in different countries.
I have no
I
doubt.
bet. Yeah.
I'm like, we're not that kind of sugar mama.
Yeah.
The SugarMamasMovement.com.
SugarMamasMovement.com.
Got
Yep.
it.
And you're on all the social medias.
Yes, all the social medias, all the time. Sometimes wish I could throw my phone in the ocean. Never.
You can have on to do that with as well, if you'd be willing to toss it.
It's a blessing and a curse, right?
Yeah.
You can never get
More
away
curse.
from it.
Mostly curse, I've decided.
I know.
Are
and
you
it's addictive,
jealous of?
too.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've got so much jealousy this morning about those people that just wanting to, abandon the technological life. God, my
off the
gosh.
grid.
I have no idea how many times I just
Yeah.
want to get in my car and chuck the phone out the window and go, freedom.
Yeah.
It's such freedom.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's like a chain.
Yeah.
It is.
No, it is.
Because you have to work,
Yeah.
but so you have to have it because you work from your phone,
Being infinitely reachable should be against the law. It's ridiculous because everybody, you know that anybody who texts you or calls you or whatever, on some level, they're going, well, I know they saw that. And it's like, well, I mean, yeah,
on
but I
Facebook.
also have a million other things going on. It's not that simple, So there's
Yeah.
that. And then the other thing is that what you were talking about, being able to, the convenience of being able to work like this. Everybody loves the convenience of being able to work like this. But because it's so convenient, you can now work 3 times, 10 times as much.
Yeah.
So you can be working all the time. And almost, it's my personality, it might be yours too. I don't know, it could be all 4 of us now that I think about it. But I almost feel guilty at times when I know I could be doing something and I'm taking a break. Because I can just open that and solve a few problems real quick. But
Yeah.
you know, it's like, well, when do you not?
Work-life
hard.
balance
Yeah.
is a thing, but it's
crazy.
hard to do.
I
Yeah.
know. I'm speaking on that a lot at the women's conference in a couple weeks. And I saw a video, and somebody said everybody says you have to be ambitious, right? But you also have to be ambitious in attaining rest, because you have to, like me, I have to fight to make myself rest, like because my mind will just go.
Yeah.
Too.
But you
Mine
have
never
to,
stops.
you have to try to like get in that, because if not, you're just going to constantly be going and going and
You
going.
have to recharge.
Yeah.
You have to recharge.
Yeah.
And
I
it
walk
just-
every day a couple of miles a day, and that's like sort of my Zen space.
Yeah.
And it
Don't
helps
take your
a
phone.
Without
lot.
your phone.
Don't
I
bring
try
it.
not to.
Don't bring your phone.
Gonna say
I turn like jazz music on my phone and like, you know, mellow out, but then of course that's stupid because it'll ring, you know,
Yeah.
and this is like that happens. I went to see, you know, general physical a few months ago, and Doc was like, your blood pressure sucks. He was like,
That was his official diagnosis.
literally, he said everything else per usual is, yeah, it's really good. You're doing a good job. Your blood pressure sucks. You need to do something about that. I'm like, all right, okay,
Yeah.
okay, I got you. So
I bet your cortisol's high too.
likely,
Yeah.
more than likely.
Who's is that right? Yeah.
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 They kind of go hand in hand. So, yeah. Yeah. Maybe that's what we need to do. That's the next thing. Then the third company you can start. How about
Start
that?
another.
We start some company where we all come together and we check our phones at the door,
Rest.
and it's like a detox from,
Off
you know,
grid.
like,
I would
yeah.
love
Hi, I'm
that.
Tim, and I'm addicted to my phone. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Tim.
Everybody everywhere. Yeah, that's so true.
Everybody would come.
Well,
I don't know
My
anybody.
name is Tim, and I'm addicted to my phone, and I want help. That's what. Hi, Tim.
Yeah.
you all have to go through this 12-step process of agreeing that you want help.
Yeah.
It's like, but I don't want help. I just want to, be back on my phone,
Want to
please.
get away?
Right? Yeah.
But the phone is for your convenience. That's what I tell my mother, because every time the phone rings, she jumps for it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can't be me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm not going to be at everyone's beck and call.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I love about this. I mean, seriously, every time we get together and we do this, meet interesting people, have cool conversations, and I'm not on that thing, and I'm not even thinking about it. Which is, I mean, there's been maybe one or two people where I was like, well, maybe I'm thinking about my phone for a second. I'm like, would you tell me what's on your mind instead of like
You have a problem.
starting there? But no, seriously, it's such a joy to get to know new people and have so much fun. And for me, it's that reminder that people are far more interesting and better part of our lives than all the crap that we consume on such a regular basis. I saw something that I sent to my daughter. I'm going to butcher these statistics, but it's pretty accurate. It's, if you're 18 years old, it was designed for kids, so I sent it to my daughter. If you're 18 years old, you have an average of something like this, 865 months left of your life, right? And then they broke it down. It's like 360 months of sleep and 200, whatever, all these different whatever. And the remainder, I remember this, was 300 and something. I want to say it was like 348 months that weren't sleep, seriously, bathroom, eating, whatever. It's like 300 and something months. And it made me sick, and it gave me chills. And I said, my daughter said 93% of those 348 months will be spent staring at a screen.
Oh my God.
And I went, oh my God. I'm like, is that
some
true? That
sort.
can't be true.
Of some sort.
Yeah, of some sort. I mean,
Yeah,
whether you're
screen,
gaming or watching
though,
TV or a
yeah.
movie or your phone or a computer or whatever,
Yeah.
but you're looking at a screen.
crazy.
93%. I thought,
Totally disconnect.
That's whoa. And let's assume that statistic is accurate. It is the internet after all. But when I thought about it, it's probably pretty close.
Probably close, yeah.
That's horrible. Anyway, yeah. There's an
Oh,
uplifting
now we all need
moment.
to just throw our
Yeah.
phones out the window.
No, I'm not going to let my kids watch TV tonight. Yeah.
Right? Anyway, yeah.
And for those of us whose work is computer related,
I know, right?
So, I mean, that's even worse
Oh, yeah.
because not only are, whenever I go to a survey and they're like, how long do you spend on the screen per day? And I'm like, 12 plus hours, because that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And how much do you get up and walk around? What are you talking about? I have a little mini treadmill thing that I put under my desk. And the other day, this is TMI, but you rearrange the letters in my name. That's what you got. I hadn't drank enough water, so I was cramping. And I'm glad my wife didn't walk in because I was bent over like something was wrong. And if you know me, I've had triple bypass heart surgery. So I'm bent over like something's wrong, but it was just my legs had seized. I couldn't even stand up. And so I'm like, I do not like working out at all, even when I know I have to. So that's still sitting under there, but it's just a footrest.
Oh my gosh.
Did you hear the voice of God telling you that maybe you should do something?
Tim, there's something wrong with you.
Tim, get up. Drink some water.
What
Eat a
is
banana.
wrong with you, Tim?
Yeah, you might want to get back on that. Give it another try if you seized up from a walk. Yeah, eat a banana, drink some water.
That's right.
Yeah.
That exactly.
If you get a bunch of bananas in the mail as a gift, you'll know where that came from.
I will look at it and go, Amy?
You can do it though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been great. You're fun to talk to.
Fun.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having
Thank you
me.
for joining. Let me try and figure out, what do your earrings say?
Smash the patriarchy.
Hey. I mean,
Tim's like,
I'm good.
yeah, he's fine.
I tell you what.
It's so funny.
Let's have a few minute talk about this topic. No, seriously. And we can decide whether or not you want to keep it or edit it. It's fine either way. But okay,
goodness.
so whenever that was, a year or so ago, my daughter, my wife and I would go see the Barbie movie. And of course, that's a big part of it, is the patriarchy and all this stuff. And we had the most cool discussion on the way home. Because everybody's got their opinions one way or the other about it, if they've even thought 10 seconds on the topic. And I like to think that somewhere in the middle is the happy medium. But the conversation ended up being about, what does that really represent? What is so this might get a little bit serious at moments, but so I teach acting to adults and teens. And I watched this really big shift take place from these young boys about 15 to 20 years ago when I first started teaching to how they've been in the last handful of years. And the major shift that I saw was this disconnect about what it means to be male. And when terms like toxic male and stuff like that came into the vernacular, it was like, okay, if you're male, there was a lot of generalized anger in the air that a lot of these young boys were feeling. And I remember certain times, because in acting class, we get to talk about all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's really a lot about who you are is what makes you a good actor. So we can talk about some of this stuff. And a number of these guys were going, if I'm honest, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to behave a lot of times because I don't want to offend a woman, but I don't want to not be a man, and I'm not sure what that means because I feel like just being male is now being associated with toxic. And it was really sad. And I understood the point of toxic male. I mean, it was trying to get an awareness. I have a daughter, and trying to tell my daughter that you need to be very concerned about a man that's not supportive of who you are as a female. You need to be whatever that means to you, and you need to be supported by that. And I think that part of the reason the whole patriarchy has come into existence in this discussion about smash the patriarchy and all these kinds of things is because a lot of these guys who did have power or control or whatever, and to say maybe that was a very, very large group of people, disrespected women in the process and didn't see their value and didn't want to uplift them. So it was kind of their own invention. And they effed it up to begin with by not seeing the strength of what's in a woman to begin with. And of course, having a daughter, trying to encourage all the best in her, and to avoid, men that might be toxic or, exploitative or whatever, which of course she's run into. I mean, just being a teenager with high school boys. But the flip of that I thought was really compelling was seeing these boys that really just they're worried about being male, about acting and saying certain things that for them, it's like, I want to, if you take a boy who's 7 years old and go play in the woods, they're going to pick up a stick, they're going to hit a tree, they're going to pretend it's a gun, they're going to do those things, whether they've watched TV about it or not. It's just, it's kind of a natural thing. In fact, It is.
Yeah.
One funny story that my wife and I were watching, my daughter, who at the time was 5 years old, in the front yard picking flowers with her friend, and they were making a little fairy garden, and it was beautiful. And across the street, two of their friends, these two boys, and they were playing across the street. They were just beating the crap out of this tree, and then like punching each other and wrestling, and it was just hilarious, right?
Yeah.
But full circle to all of that, it's like, where and how do we, hopefully, life is just full of pendulum swings. It always is. It's like whenever there's a problem, then we need to fix it. And usually the fix doesn't stop in the middle. It goes way over here to get the change to happen. And when it finally does start to happen, it gets to here. So it's always doing this. It rarely lands in the middle. But thinking about it a lot, listening to those boys after a class where they're like, some of them are kind of in tears about, not knowing what to do or to say, and then also having a daughter in that juxtaposition for me, going, you got to watch out for certain things in this world, and these guys that are predators, led me to think, where and how do we get to that place where men are much more aware of what a woman needs in terms of support from them, how they meet them where they are, how they love them for what they're built to do and seeing their strength and not feel intimidated by that. But at the same time, a woman recognizing that a man is made, your average dude, not every one of them, I'm not putting a men in a box, but your average dude walking around wants to help, protect, provide. Mm-hmm. And they're built like that. Help, protect, provide. And when they're told, I don't want your help, don't try and protect me, I can do for myself, they're like, okay, I hear you. But where does that leave me? What am I supposed to do then? And so, that's that middle ground conversation where if everybody could come to a place where they go, okay, I see the differences.
Yeah.
And I respect the differences. I never want to offend you. Can you help me to be me kind of thing? Mm-hmm. Then there's that, I don't know. So there's my
It's such
long
a deep
piece on that.
topic.
It's very deep.
And it's so loaded, and there's so many different layers to
Yeah.
it. Because I could talk about this all day.
Me
but
too,
I won't.
obviously. Yeah.
But,
well, we don't have to, have to keep this in here, but yeah.
Yeah. So my husband, he's very masculine.
Yeah.
And we have sons. And so I would say before I had a son, I didn't understand why they would do, well, I'm not going to say understand now, but sometimes I'd be like, what the hell why are you doing? That is the dumbest thing I've ever thought. And my husband calls them first thoughts, right? He says that boys operate on a first thought level.
I knew what you meant. As soon as you said that, I was like, oh, your husband's so right. That's great. First thought.
That's his theory.
I got to write that down.
So he tries to talk to our boys like, okay, try to go with the second is okay, but let's try to go with the third thought. That's probably your best bet. And so I totally agree that boys are different in general. They want to destroy things. They want to be physical. Like they can, I have a daughter too. She's 5. She likes to wrestle just as much though. But they're different. And I think the thing is with, for me anyways, is that I think when a man is comfortable in himself and his masculinity, that he can let a woman be who she is, and it's not an issue.
100%.
But he's got to have that confidence in himself and not have that ego that's always got to try to be like topping her or not letting her be who she is. And so that's the biggest key. And so, we can say things like smash the patriarchy, and it's fun and all that stuff. But
I love them, by the way. I think they're great.
It's more like men that try to exert their power over women and the whole system that is against us. There's not an equal share of power.
No.
In the government. There's still not equal pay for the same jobs and all that kind of stuff. But I totally understand what you're saying, that there is, I think, because women have been so on the defense for so long and attacked for so long and not felt safe for so long and not been able to trust men for so long, that they put up that wall and they say, we don't need you.
Yeah.
We don't want you to protect us. We don't want you to provide for us. Because women are able to do those things themselves, but like my husband, like him coming alongside me and doing all that stuff for me is like, oh yeah, that's like my feminine energy. Like I can be free in that, So, and not everybody's the same. There's all kinds of different beliefs and
Know
things
your
like
audience,
that.
basically.
Yeah, know your audience, But yeah, boys are dumb to agree with you. I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, I go
just
back to, I do think that, I mean, any man that's complaining about, whether it's feminist movements or, patriarchy complaints and that kind of stuff, it's like, well, guy, where do you think that came from? You invented it. It's without question, it's, the fault of men for wielding power in an unprofessional and disrespectful way that started and caused all of it. But at the same time, it's like, how, where is that middle ground? It's like you said,
Yeah.
get into that place
I
where
think that men just
recognition.
need to be, when you're raising boys and stuff like that, you just need to make them aware of things that can be offensive. Like, I'm not trying to change my sons and make them not little terrors, but you need to learn how to respect women, and you need to learn about consent, and you need to learn about a woman's body as her body. Those are the things that are non-negotiable. Now, if you want to go out and like wrestle in the middle of the floor or whatever, or jump off your four-wheeler, I mean, whatever, but you need to respect women. And that's the bigger issue. But I can see how they would think, because there is a big toxic masculinity movement there. And to me, those things, the boy things, the masculine things, they don't bother me. It's more of the belief system and how you're treating women.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
But I guess where I'm going with that is, it's not but, it's an and, that the younger kids that don't know how to interpret what that means.
Right, yeah.
I think it's very demoralizing.
Struggle.
They're in a
Certainly.
place
You have
where,
to
I mean, you
really
look at
coach
young
them.
boys today, and
Yeah.
a lot of them are, really not knowing what to do in terms of how to handle themselves. I see a lot of great young boys and so forth. A lot of my daughter's friends and so forth, they're awesome kids. But, it's maybe a bigger question mark than it was. And growing up is tricky, trying to figure out who you are and how to navigate the world. I mean, I think that's hard, period, for everybody, It's just part of the job. But adding that to the conversation where, it's like, okay, well, how am I supposed to behave? To your point, it should be instead of, this blanket comment and, just uplifting one side, it should be also, in the process, let us tell you what, we're looking for. And this is maybe or the guys should get together and be like, this is what they're after, and this is what they're trying to accomplish. How do we help them do that and maintain who we are? It's a lot.
Don't be a dick.
Well, I think there's a lot.
But I mean, seriously, for a lot of guys, I think they
just
don't necessarily know what that means.
Yeah.
They might just be being young male, full of bravado, and not realizing that that's coming off that way, which they can maybe use in education. But
I think that's key, is the education piece.
Yeah.
And I think there's not a lot. I think this generation doesn't have a lot of strong male role models, like in the public and at home. And that's important, I feel like, because, my husband says all the time, it's hard for a woman to raise a man because you don't know all the ins and outs of that. And so it's working with those kids, it's coaching them, it's teaching them so they can, just like with girls, they need their mother and their father is kind of the same thing. So, but I have a 7-year-old. We were in the car this morning. This is the first time I wore these earrings, and he's learning how to read. And he was like, "What does that mean?" And I was like, "Oh God, this is going to be a lot." You don't understand. You don't realize something's such an adult concept until they ask you about it. And I'm like, "Okay." I said, "Well, it just kind of means, that men mainly have the power in the country." And he said, "They do?" I said, yeah. He said, "Well, I don't want the power." I just thought that was so funny because he was just like so nonchalant about it, But it was just a funny moment. But he's a funny little kid. But I don't know.
look at what your earrings are doing. And look at all these conversations you're sparking. This is great.
I know.
I like controversial topics. I really do.
Yeah. You need to talk about.
Well, that's how you find resolution. I really enjoy getting into those topics that not every one of them, but that people don't necessarily want to talk about, because if you don't, where are you ever going to find a common ground? How are you ever going to appreciate somebody else's perspective if everybody's like, well, that's uncomfortable? Well, yeah, and it's just going to get worse if you don't.
Yeah.
So, thanks for the earrings.
I
Thanks for wearing this
I
today.
think you're hitting on part of the solution is education. I mean, I feel like it's a disservice for high school students to not have to take psychology classes and learn how people think. And like when we had Mike on, you know, people are different, but there's the same general personalities, whether you're male or female. And if you can understand that common ground, then you're more likely to relate and understand.
And just appreciating the differences.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's appreciating the differences.
Yeah.
Like it would be in anything else. You know, appreciating somebody's cultural difference, appreciating somebody else's perspective, whatever
But
it
that's
might be.
something that's not really taught unless your parents or whoever
Well, I
teach you
mean,
it.
again, we could go way off on this one, but it's like the things that don't get taught in school that are a part of your everyday life. I mean, diet and nutrition is super cursory in school, and you literally do that every day of your life. You know, mental health and your ability to calm your stress so you don't have high blood pressure like me. You know, so that you can manage things. It's not talked about. The money management, it's not talked about. Psychology, these things are not talked about, but you have to deal with them every single day. I feel like you're spot on with that. The ability for groups to sit in a classroom and go, let's talk about different perspectives and why that's a good thing and not a bad thing, that you should fear somebody else's, you know, perspective on something. So, yeah.
Empathy's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Kind of great, right?
Bring empathy back.
Kind of great.
But I'll digress.
Well, I will say this, the end of my little soapbox on this is I do feel like the world is becoming a more tolerant place than it ever was, by far. I feel like this youngest generation, you know, if you hear somebody say something that goes a little sideways, the average person under the age of 25 will kind of go,
They'll call you out on it.
or at least look at you like, maybe that's
what?
inappropriate, you know.
You can't get away with that,
And that's, you know, for the most part, I think that's good. I mean, you don't want everybody to be, you know, overly delicate, that their sensibilities are, you know,
Can't
taking
joke.
place of, I mean, that's a bit much. But the idea that it's like, well, let's all be tolerant. That's great to see. So, you know, I think the world's a much more tolerant place.
Well, on that point, thank you so much for joining us today and having these conversations with us.
Yeah, anytime.
Super fun to meet you.
You too.
Thank you. Well, thank you for joining Twin City Talk. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. The views and opinions portrayed by guests on this podcast are not necessarily those of the distributors and hosting companies. And if you love this podcast, that's great, but don't think about stealing it. Reach out to us and talk about the content because it is copyrighted.